Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks, coming to you today from Portugal. You wouldn't believe it, but this is the Atlantic Ocean behind me here, the immense Atlantic Ocean, and of course visibility today about 20 meters, so a very, very dangerous place if you happen to be in a boat, and I imagine that a lot of the boats in this area are not going out today, and I'll tell you what, it looks like a scary place out there at the moment, and completely different to the video that I filmed the other day, which was more or less in the same spot as this one here. So what a difference a couple of days makes. But I will say that it is very cool in this area compared to Spain at the moment. Spain going through a heat wave and some extreme temperatures in a lot of the country. But here it's about 18 degrees Celsius today. Don't know what that is in Fahrenheit if you are watching from the States, but 18 degrees Celsius today and getting to a top of around 22 should the sun come out, and I'm hoping that it will. Now I've got the sunglasses on, don't really need them, but I have a problem with squinting and I don't really want to be squinting in this video today. So I'll keep the sunglasses on. Now a sign here with a good piece of advice, highly recommend not doing that. So a bit of a feedback video today from yesterday's video. Lots of comments happening there, lots of people talking about that travel ban, where they feel safer, whether they feel safer in Spain or whether they feel safer in the UK. I think the majority of the comments were from people saying that Spain is safer. Lots of people feel that they are safer in Spain than in the UK at the moment. But again, there's a lot of negative press about Spain, and of course not helped by old Boris Johnson coming out yesterday or the day before and saying that there is a second wave happening in Europe, and what's happening in Spain apparently has led him to come out with statements like that. And let's be honest, the figures are not good. The figures are not good in a lot of countries around the world at the moment. We can see what's happening in Melbourne. Melbourne is getting a lot of cases each day and it continues to rise. And of course the problems that they have there now in the old people's homes, the same problems we had in Spain in March, April, May, but of course not yet to the same extent. So fingers crossed that that doesn't happen in Melbourne. But again, the city of Melbourne in lockdown and case numbers on the rise. So got to be careful about that. Now, as we mentioned the other day, a lot of countries now recommending people not to travel to Spain, telling their citizens that Spain is perhaps not the safest country to visit, keeping them away. I think France is telling people not to visit areas like Catalonia and Aragon, but the rest of the country is okay. And of course, that 14-day quarantine slapped on people returning from Spain to the UK. As I said, a bit of a kick in the guts for the Spanish tourism sector. And that's another point that I want to mention today is the huge amounts of people that have lost their jobs in the last 3 months, something around 1.1 million people. The unemployment rate is currently around 15.5%, and that is expected to get a lot worse in coming months. Of course, it all depends on the furlough schemes, on the ERTE, as they call them in Spain, if companies are going to be able to stay open once that scheme finishes. Not exactly sure when it's going to end. I think the government did prolong it. But we'll see what happens when that scheme ends and a lot of companies come to the reality that they can't survive in the current economic crisis. And that's something that I am particularly worried about, of course, because I work in the services sector. I depend on people having money in order to pay for my English language services. And of course, if there's no money around, bad news for me and bad news for a lot of other sectors in Spain. But what are you going to do? The lockdown was the lockdown. You can't change that. The economy was destroyed, but of course the government decided to put health first, and it's going to be a very delicate balance in months to come. A couple of seagulls going crazy there. This area is rife with seagulls, and they are very, very big and very, very loud. Now you can see on the beach behind me that there are a few brave souls that have decided to come to the beach despite the conditions today. This is a part of the world where you often get this mist in the morning, this sea mist, of course, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable to go to the beach. But what normally happens is that around lunchtime, the sea mist lifts and you can enjoy a good afternoon at the beach. And that's what people down here are probably waiting to do. The beach behind me is more of a family orientated beach. You don't get any waves, you don't get the surf culture at a beach like this. People come here with their families because they can go for a swim in the Atlantic Ocean and not have to put up with big waves, strong currents, and other problems at the beach that you can have here in a place like this. Now, lots of talk about the plan in the Galician community to introduce fines if people don't register. I think that the fines are going to be up to 601,000 euros. Somebody said that that was maybe in pesetas, 601,000 pesetas, but no, it is euros. Of course, that's just the maximum amount that they propose. Most fines will be a lot smaller than that if they fine at all, but 601,000 euros is the maximum. And of course, that's an unrealistic amount of money for the majority of the world. Of course, if somebody like Amancio Ortega doesn't register, maybe that's a fine that he could pay, but for the rest of us, no. And as I said yesterday, it's going to be interesting to see whether other places in Spain bring in a similar type of fining system or a registry system. If you go to a place like Andalusia, if you go to a place like Alicante, maybe they will bring in something similar. I'm sure Galicia is not going to be the only place that brings in a system like this. It's the first one, but I'm sure that there will be others in the next few weeks. And of course, as we mention almost in every video, each autonomous community has the power and the control to do these things at the moment and to keep their particular region or area under control. And if that's what Galicia thinks that they need to do, that's what they're going to do. But again, 601,000 euros, not really a realistic fine for a lot of people. And a lot of talk yesterday again about what's happening in Madrid, the idea that the Madrid government has to bring in some type of COVID passport or some type of book that you record whether you have had the virus, whether you have antibodies. The Madrid government has copped a lot of backlash, especially from the central government, that says that this type of thing is not necessary. I read somewhere that they have decided to scrap the plans, but I read in a Spanish newspaper this morning that they are still planning to go ahead with something like that. So again, not really sure on that. Contradicting news coming out about the Madrid COVID passport idea. I'm not really sure if people are too happy about this or not. I imagine that people don't want to have this type of control in their lives, but that's what Madrid is talking about doing. So again, we'll see whether that comes into place in September or October when people start to get back into the city of Madrid, because a lot of people have left the city. A lot of people have gone to the coastal areas in Spain. I, for example, have come to Portugal, so a lot of people have got out of the city of Madrid and gone to another destination, and it won't be until people start to come back in September for a lot of people. That's when people will have to deal with things like the COVID-19 passport in the Madrid community. But as far as I know, no other areas in Spain are talking about something similar, or at least I haven't heard anything about it. But if you have heard that your area is talking about something like this, let us know in the comment section below. And also a bit of feedback about my Spanish pronunciation yesterday. Somebody asked me if I speak Portuguese. The answer to that is no. Portuguese for me is a work in progress. I find it very, very difficult to speak Portuguese, especially because of the different sounds that the language has. Spanish is quite simple in that regards. They only have 5 vowel sounds, but Portuguese has a lot more vowel sounds, and that makes it quite difficult to speak. It's easy to read. You can pick up a newspaper and read it and understand it, or at least the majority if you understand Spanish, but when it comes to speaking, it's a whole different kettle of fish. I get by in the majority of cases. I can go into a butcher's and order things. I can go into a supermarket and communicate with people there if I need to. I can get by in Portugal, but another thing I will say is that here people tend to speak English, especially in the service places. If you go to restaurants and bars and shops, people speak English quite well, and the majority of people here understand Spanish, which is the complete opposite in Spain. Very few people would understand Portuguese in Spain, but here everybody seems to understand Spanish. For example, my girlfriend goes around here speaking Spanish, or what they call portuñol, and everybody seems to understand her. But of course, when it comes to speaking Portuguese perfectly, I think it's probably easier to learn Portuguese first and then Spanish, rather than Spanish and then Portuguese, because it can be a bit confusing. But I'm working on it. Every time I come here, I practice a little bit more, and I can understand more of the things on the television and the radio when you're in the car. So my Portuguese is getting better. But as I said, it's a work in progress. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. You can see that we still have limited visibility, so it doesn't seem to be lifting as quickly as I thought it would. Questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Video thumbs up, thumbs down if you didn't like it. See you in the next one. Hasta luego. Hasta luego.